Everyone laughed when he bought the cheapest house in town, but they stopped laughing the moment he discovered what was hidden beneath the basement floor. Before we begin today's incredible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join our growing community. If you enjoy stories filled with mystery, unexpected discoveries, and life-changing twists, hit the like button and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, get comfortable and prepare for an unforgettable journey about a man who bought the cheapest house in town, only to uncover a secret hidden beneath it that nobody saw coming. Ethan Walker had spent most of his adult life being careful with money. While many of his friends upgraded their cars, took expensive vacations, and spent freely whenever they wanted something new, Ethan followed a different path. He saved every paycheck, every bonus, every extra dollar. Not because he enjoyed being frugal, because he had a dream. He wanted a home, a place that belonged to him, a place where nobody could raise the rent, nobody could force him to leave, nobody could take away. For years, that dream felt impossible. Housing prices climbed higher every year. Homes that once seemed affordable suddenly cost twice as much. Every property Ethan visited came with a price tag far beyond his budget. At first, he remained optimistic. Then reality slowly replaced excitement. The savings account he had worked so hard to build suddenly looked small compared to the market. Friends encouraged him to keep renting. Family members suggested waiting. Some believed he should abandon the dream altogether. But Ethan refused. He continued searching, week after week, month after month. Then one rainy Saturday morning, he discovered a listing that immediately caught his attention. The house sat near the edge of town. The asking price was dramatically lower than anything else available. At first, Ethan assumed it was a mistake. Properties didn't sell that cheaply anymore, especially not houses with land. Curious, he scheduled a viewing. The moment he arrived, he understood why nobody wanted it. The house looked terrible. Paint peeled from nearly every exterior wall. Several windows were cracked. The front porch leaned slightly to one side. Weeds covered most of the yard. The roof showed signs of age. Even the mailbox looked exhausted. Most buyers would have turned around immediately. Many probably had. Yet Ethan kept looking. Inside, the situation wasn't much better. Dust covered every surface. The floors creaked loudly. Old wallpaper peeled from the walls. The basement smelled damp. The kitchen looked decades behind modern standards. Every room required work. A lot of work. The real estate agent seemed almost embarrassed. "You don't have to stay if you're not interested." Ethan smiled. "I'm interested." The agent blinked. "Seriously?" "Seriously." She laughed. "You might be the first person who said that." Most people saw problems. Ethan saw possibilities. He imagined repaired walls, fresh paint, new flooring, updated rooms, a restored yard. For the first time in months, he could actually picture himself owning a home. Not because it was perfect. Because it wasn't. The imperfections made it possible. A week later, he bought it. The reaction from others arrived immediately. Friends questioned his decision. Co-workers joked about it. Neighbors openly laughed. One man living across the street watched Ethan unload supplies and shook his head. "You paid money for that place?" Ethan smiled. "I did." The neighbor laughed. "Good luck." Others weren't much kinder. Some predicted he would run out of money. Some predicted the house would never be worth repairing. Others simply called him crazy. At first, the comments bothered him. Nobody enjoys becoming the subject of jokes, especially when they're trying to improve their life. But eventually, Ethan stopped listening, because deep down he knew something important. The people criticizing him weren't helping. They weren't carrying materials. They weren't paying bills. They weren't doing the work. He was. And that meant their opinions didn't matter nearly as much as they believed. The first months proved difficult. Every day after work, Ethan returned home and started renovating. Weekends disappeared. Free time vanished. His life became an endless cycle of repairs. Old flooring had to be removed. Walls needed rebuilding. Electrical issues required attention. Plumbing problems appeared constantly. Every solved problem seemed to reveal two more. Several times he questioned himself. Late at night, exhausted and covered in dust, he sometimes wondered whether everyone else had been right. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe the house was too much. Maybe the critics knew something he didn't. But each morning he continued. One step at a time, one room at a time. Slowly, progress appeared. The living room transformed first, then the kitchen, then several bedrooms. The house began feeling alive again. Neighbors noticed. The jokes became less frequent. People who once laughed now watched quietly. Some even complimented the improvements. For the first time, Ethan felt genuine pride, not because the house looked beautiful, because he was changing. The project taught him patience, discipline, confidence. Every repaired wall reminded him that difficult things become possible when approached consistently. Months passed. The property improved dramatically. Yet one area remained largely untouched: the basement. Unlike the rest of the house, the basement felt strange, not dangerous, just unusual. Certain sections seemed older than the structure above. The layout felt oddly designed, and occasionally Ethan noticed small details that didn't quite make sense. A section of wall seemed thicker than necessary. Parts of the floor appeared newer than surrounding areas. Nothing major, just small observations. At first he ignored them. Older homes often contained unusual features, but the curiosity remained. One Saturday afternoon, while replacing damaged boards near the back of the basement, Ethan accidentally dropped his hammer. The tool struck the floor with a loud metallic sound. He froze. That wasn't normal. Wood should sound like wood. Concrete should sound like concrete. This sounded different, almost hollow. Slowly he tapped the area again. The same sound echoed back. Curious, he moved several feet away and repeated the process. Solid. Normal. Then he returned to the original location. Hollow. His pulse quickened slightly. For several moments, he simply stared at the floor. The logical explanation was probably boring. Maybe an old utility space. Maybe forgotten storage. Maybe nothing important at all. Yet something felt unusual. Something hidden. Something waiting. Unable to ignore the feeling, Ethan grabbed additional tools and began investigating. Minutes turned into hours. Dust filled the basement. Old boards came loose. Layers of material disappeared. Then suddenly his tool struck metal. Not a pipe, not wiring. A large flat metal surface buried beneath the floor. His heartbeat accelerated. Carefully, he cleared away more debris. The shape became visible. Large, rectangular, deliberately concealed. Whatever it was, somebody had gone to considerable effort to hide it. For the first time since buying the house, genuine excitement replaced curiosity, because Ethan realized he might have discovered something nobody knew existed. And when he finally uncovered enough of the metal structure to see what it really was, he immediately understood why someone had worked so hard to keep it hidden for generations. The basement felt unusually quiet. Ethan knelt beside the exposed metal surface, brushing away dirt with trembling hands. Hours earlier, he had been completing another routine renovation project. Now he was staring at something that clearly didn't belong beneath an ordinary house. For several moments, he simply sat there, thinking, trying to remain logical. Old houses often contain strange features: hidden storage spaces, abandoned utility areas, forgotten construction elements. There was probably a simple explanation. Yet the longer he looked at the metal structure, the harder it became to believe that. The object wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. Someone had intentionally hidden it. That much was obvious. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and continued clearing debris. Slowly, more details emerged. The metal formed a large rectangular shape. Heavy hinges appeared along one side. A rusted handle sat near the center. His pulse quickened, because suddenly he understood exactly what he was looking at. A hatch. A concealed hatch buried beneath the basement floor. The realization sent excitement racing through him. He immediately wanted to open it. At the same time, caution held him back. The structure could be unstable. The space below could be dangerous. Old hidden rooms often remained sealed for good reasons. Ethan forced himself to slow down. He spent the next hour carefully removing surrounding materials. By evening, the entire hatch was visible. It looked ancient. Years of rust covered every inch. Dust filled the edges. Yet despite its age, the construction remained remarkably solid. Whoever built it had intended it to last. That thought fascinated him, because it raised an important question. Why? Why would someone build a secret hatch beneath a house? And more importantly, what was underneath? Unable to wait any longer, Ethan wrapped both hands around the rusted handle. He pulled. Nothing. The hatch refused to move. He tried again. Still nothing. Decades of corrosion had effectively sealed it shut. Frustration briefly appeared. Then determination replaced it. The house had tested him for months. This wouldn't stop him. The following day, he returned with additional tools. Carefully, he cleaned the hinges, applied lubricant, removed rust, worked patiently, hour after hour. Finally, late in the afternoon, something happened. A loud metallic groan echoed through the basement. The hatch shifted, only slightly, but enough. Ethan's heart raced. He pulled harder. The ancient metal slowly lifted. Dust exploded into the air. Cold air rushed upward from below. For the first time in what might have been decades, the hidden space beneath the house breathed again. Ethan stepped back. The opening revealed a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. His flashlight illuminated only a portion of it. The rest disappeared below. The sight felt unreal. This wasn't an old storage compartment. This wasn't a forgotten utility area. This was something much bigger, something intentionally concealed. For several minutes, Ethan simply stared. Every horror movie he had ever watched suddenly felt relevant. Part of him wanted calling someone. Another part wanted exploring immediately. Curiosity won. It usually did. Carefully, he grabbed a stronger flashlight, checked the staircase, then began descending. Each step produced a faint echo. The air felt cool, dry, surprisingly clean. As he moved deeper underground, the beam of light revealed stone walls on both sides. The craftsmanship looked impressive. Not modern, not crude, purposeful. Whoever built the chamber knew exactly what they were doing. After descending approximately 20 steps, Ethan reached the bottom. His flashlight swept across the room. Then he froze. The chamber was enormous, far larger than expected. The hidden room stretched beneath a significant portion of the property. Stone walls surrounded the area. Wooden support beams crossed the ceiling. Several large shelves lined one side. Crates occupied multiple corners. Tables stood covered in dust. Everything appeared untouched. As if time itself had stopped, Ethan slowly walked forward. Every step revealed something new. Old tools, metal containers, books, documents, boxes. The room felt less like storage and more like a preserved moment from another era. Excitement quickly mixed with confusion. What exactly had this place been? A shelter? A vault? A secret workshop? The possibilities seemed endless. His flashlight eventually landed on a wooden desk. Several journals rested there. Unlike many other objects, they appeared relatively well preserved. Ethan carefully opened one. The pages looked fragile but readable. What he discovered immediately captured his attention. The journal belonged to a man named Charles Whitmore. The name sounded vaguely familiar. Over the next hour, Ethan read as much as possible. Charles Whitmore had lived nearly a century earlier. According to the journal, he was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the region during his lifetime. Factories, railroad investments, property ownership. The man accumulated substantial wealth. Yet the entries revealed something unexpected. Charles deeply distrusted banks. Economic uncertainty during that period created fear. Many wealthy individuals worried about losing everything. Apparently, Charles was one of them. Rather than storing valuables publicly, he created private hiding places, secret locations, concealed spaces, protected vaults, including one beneath his own home. Ethan looked around the chamber again. The pieces began fitting together. This wasn't simply a room. It was a hidden vault, a secret place designed to protect something valuable. The realization changed everything. Because if the journals were accurate, there was a strong possibility that valuable items still remained inside. His heartbeat accelerated again. The chamber suddenly felt different, more important, more mysterious. For hours, he continued exploring. Most discoveries proved historically interesting rather than financially significant. Old documents, letters, maps, photographs, records. Yet several large crates remained unopened. Unlike everything else, these containers appeared heavily reinforced. Metal bands wrapped around thick wooden panels. Heavy locks secured the lids. Whoever stored them clearly considered their contents important. Ethan examined the largest crate carefully. The lock had rusted badly, but it remained intact. He tested the lid. Heavy, very heavy. Whatever rested inside carried substantial weight. The possibility thrilled him. At the same time, he reminded himself not to make assumptions. The crate might contain books, tools, machinery, anything. Still, he couldn't ignore the growing excitement. For months, people had laughed at his decision to buy the cheapest house in town. Months. They mocked the peeling paint, the damaged roof, the overgrown yard, the endless repairs. Everyone focused on what stood above ground. Nobody imagined something extraordinary might exist beneath it. Not even Ethan. As evening approached, he sat quietly inside the chamber, flashlight resting nearby, journal open in his hands. The hidden room had already changed his understanding of the property. Yet deep down, he sensed something bigger remained undiscovered, because the journals repeatedly mentioned protected assets, valuables, items Charles intended preserving for future generations, and every clue pointed toward the same conclusion. Those unopened crates contained the final secret, a secret nobody had seen for nearly 100 years. The next day, Ethan would finally open the largest container, and what he found inside would shock the entire town. Ethan barely slept that night. His mind replayed the discovery again and again. The hidden chamber, the journals, the sealed crates. Every possibility seemed to race through his imagination. He tried remaining realistic. The contents could be disappointing. Old records, broken tools, items valuable only to historians. Yet something deep inside told him otherwise. The journals repeatedly mentioned assets, protection, preservation. Charles. Whitmore had gone to extraordinary lengths to conceal the underground chamber. People didn't build secret vaults beneath their homes for ordinary belongings. By sunrise, Ethan was already in the basement. Coffee in one hand, flashlight in the other. Determination filled every step. The hidden staircase no longer felt intimidating. Now it felt familiar, almost welcoming. As he descended into the chamber, the excitement returned immediately. The largest crate waited exactly where he had left it. Silent, mysterious, unopened. For nearly an hour, Ethan worked carefully on the rusted metal bands and lock. The old mechanisms resisted every effort. Years of age had fused components together. Several times he considered giving up temporarily, but curiosity proved stronger. Finally, with one loud crack, the final lock gave way. The sound echoed through the chamber. Ethan froze. His pulse pounded in his ears. Slowly, he lifted the lid. For several seconds, he simply stared, unable to process what he was seeing. The crate wasn't filled with tools, or documents, or household items. Inside sat dozens of neatly organized containers. Small wooden boxes, metal cases, protective pouches. Everything appeared carefully arranged, deliberately preserved. Hands trembling slightly, Ethan opened the first box. Gold. Rows of gold coins reflected the flashlight beam. Perfectly preserved. Beautiful. Real. His breath caught. He opened another container. More coins. Another. Jewelry. Another. Rare collectibles. Another. Historical artifacts. The discoveries continued. Box after box. Container after container. Each revealing something valuable. Something remarkable. Something hidden for generations. By the time he finished examining the contents, Ethan sat speechless. The collection represented far more than a forgotten stash of valuables. It was a time capsule, a preserved piece of history, and potentially worth an enormous amount of money. For several days, he told nobody, not because he wanted secrecy forever, because he wanted certainty. The discovery felt too important for guesses, too significant for assumptions. He contacted experts, historians, appraisers, archaeological specialists, professionals who could properly evaluate the findings. The results exceeded every expectation. The coins alone held substantial value. Several collectibles proved extremely rare. Certain historical documents attracted particular interest from researchers. The combined collection represented one of the most important private discoveries the region had seen in decades. Then came the valuation. Millions, not thousands, not hundreds of thousands. Millions. The number felt unreal. Ethan read the report multiple times. Each reading produced the same reaction: disbelief. The man who purchased the cheapest house in town had unknowingly acquired one of its greatest hidden secrets. News spread quickly, faster than Ethan expected. Within days, reporters appeared. Within weeks, the story reached regional news outlets. People became fascinated. Everyone wanted details. Everyone wanted photographs. Everyone wanted access. The same neighbors who once laughed now stood outside taking pictures. The same people who questioned his decision suddenly called him lucky. Some claimed they always believed in him. Others acted as though they had supported the purchase from the beginning. Ethan found those reactions amusing, because he remembered clearly. He remembered the jokes, the criticism, the skepticism. But surprisingly, he felt no resentment. The experience had changed him. Months earlier, criticism affected him deeply. Now it barely mattered, because he understood something important. People judge based on what they can see. Very few take time to imagine what might exist beneath the surface. That lesson applied to houses, businesses, dreams, and people. The discovery brought opportunities Ethan never expected. Financial security became reality. Debt disappeared. Stress faded. Options expanded. Yet perhaps the most remarkable change wasn't external. It was internal. Throughout the renovation process, Ethan had grown. The project taught patience, persistence, resilience, confidence. Had he purchased a perfect house, he never would have developed those qualities. The struggle created growth. The treasure simply arrived afterward. Rather than selling everything immediately, Ethan made a different decision. Part of the collection remained preserved. Historians helped document the discovery. A local museum created a special exhibit. Students visited. Researchers studied the artifacts. Residents learned more about their town's history. The discovery became something larger than personal wealth. It became a community story, a shared piece of history. Meanwhile, Ethan completed the restoration of the house. The transformation amazed everyone. The neglected property that once inspired laughter became one of the most admired homes in town. Fresh paint brightened the exterior. Beautiful landscaping replaced weeds. Modern upgrades improved every room. The house finally reflected the vision Ethan saw from the beginning. Potential realized. Years later, visitors still asked about the hidden chamber. Tourists occasionally stopped by. Reporters continued referencing the story. Yet whenever someone asked Ethan what the greatest discovery really was, his answer remained the same. It wasn't the gold. It wasn't the jewelry. It wasn't even the millions. The greatest discovery was learning to trust his own judgment. Because long before he found treasure beneath the house, he found something equally valuable inside himself. Belief. The belief to move forward despite criticism. The belief to pursue opportunities others ignored. The belief to see possibility where everyone else saw failure. One evening, standing on the restored front porch, Ethan watched the sunset fade across the town. Children rode bicycles down the street. Neighbors chatted nearby. The house stood stronger than ever, and beneath it, hidden from view, rested the secret that changed everything. People often described his story as a tale of luck. Ethan disagreed. Luck might have hidden the treasure, but persistence uncovered it. And as he looked at the home everyone once mocked, he smiled. Because the greatest opportunities in life are often buried beneath the things everyone else overlooks. The cheapest house in town didn't just contain a hidden vault. It contained the future nobody believed was possible.